everyone. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to our new Justices of the Peace. This is a meeting of the Essex Junction Board of Civil Authority. And our first bit of business here, an agenda has been circulated before the meeting. And we have to, it looks like, Susan, do we approve the order, or do we first need to elect our chair and vice chair?
So we would approve the agenda first.
Yeah, good. All right, so with that, assume we need a motion to approve the agenda before us.
I will move to accept the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a first and a second. And Susan, just on the side of process here, I seem to recall that if we have members voting by remote means, do we need to have some sort of a roll call for the purpose of recording the vote?
Oh gosh.
Only if I may.
Yes, please.
Only if it's not unanimous.
Okay, so
Yay.
with that, we've had a first and a second. So I would entertain the vote now to approve the agenda. So please vote.
Aye.
I didn't hear any nays, so that was approved unanimously. All right. Next item on the agenda, and Susan, feel free to check me on this. Just want to make sure that we follow everything, but it looks like we have an agenda item for the public to be heard. So is there anyone present in the room who would have comments?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, I hear crickets. So not seeing any comments at this time, we'll move on. The next item, so we have business items on our agenda here. The first would be election of a chair and vice chair to carry out this term as the Board of Civil Authority. And so, Susan, in terms of process here, can you just notify us of how that would proceed?
So we would take nominations for the chair. Anyone want to nominate someone to be the chair?
I nominate Dylan for chair.
Okay. Any other nominations? I don't believe that requires a second. So you can vote. All in favor of Dylan being chair?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, I committed an act of local government, perhaps silliness, by voting for myself, but here I am. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for that opportunity to serve here. So it sounds like we also need to nominate then a vice chair to serve on the board as well. So I would entertain nominations at this time.
Anyone?
I would like to nominate Marcus Serta.
Second.
So we had a nomination of Marcus Serta for vice chair. Susan, let's see, are there any other nominations there in the room? I don't see any other hands. Anyone have any here on Zoom?
No. Nope.
Okay, so seeing none, I would entertain a vote for that as well. So all those-
Aye.
Aye. Okay, looks like we have our vice chair. Congratulations, Marcus Serta, new vice chair of the Board of Civil Authority. So with that business aside, we have here our next business item is to discuss and approve a new polling location of the Champlain Valley Fairgrounds. And so Susan and anyone else who would like to weigh in, I see we have Diane there. Could you walk us through this proposal?
Sure. So Diane and I've been thinking in the back of my head that the school is not an ideal place to have elections, and looking at trying to find other places, and found out that the fairgrounds would be interested in hosting us. And so Diane and I went over on Monday morning and looked at the facilities, and they look like they would serve us very well. And the people at the fairgrounds are very accommodating, and they don't want to charge us for anything, which is a good thing. And flexible with date, as long as we're not there while they're preparing for the fair or having the fair, then they're happy to have us do our elections there. So it's under the state statute, it's the responsibility of the Board of Civil Authority to determine polling places. So I had asked them if we could have our April 11th this year election there, and the elections that are scheduled for 2024. And that's as far as we got. So
Susan, if I could just ask a couple questions. I imagine there might be a couple comments or questions on this just because it's something new. But just first and foremost, can you remind us, because we might have some viewers who are curious, in the past, there was a town of Essex that held elections. There might be a town meeting day. There was a village election at that time as well that took place in April. And then, of course, we have a primary election, depending on the cycle. We have presidential primary elections. We have general elections. So can we just be reminded of it sounded like you indicated the next election date, but just so folks at home are aware.
Yeah, so our next election date is April 11th, which is the local city election. This year will be the first time that city residents won't be participating in the Essex town election. We're going to be putting out some information about that, so people realize they're not going to be getting ballots and they're not going to be voting in March. So after this, we have no elections scheduled the rest of this year. Next year, it'll be, we will be voting in March next year in 2024, because that's when the presidential primary is, and that's happens on town meeting day. So that'll probably confuse people all over again. But then after that, there will be our city election in April, along with the school election, and then the primary in August, and the general election in November of 2024. So that'll be our busy election year.
Yeah, and I'll just say it's a very busy schedule with these. So this is obviously a big decision. And so I would entertain any questions or comments here, just because recognizing residents are going to maybe not be aware of this. And of course, those of us who worked the polls recently are aware that we've had redistricting at the legislative level. So a new polling location, I assume that initiating that would come with work to ensure that we get the word out to folks so that they're aware. So with that, I'll open it up to comments. And I see Kelly Adams here on the screen.
Two things. Sorry, two things. Susan, I was hoping you could say more about what is considered less ideal in the school setting that would be improved in the fairgrounds setting. So actually three things. So that plus any concerns about public transportation, walkability, those issues, access. And then lastly, I just have to say, I'm concerned about doing this as quickly as this April. This feels like a tell people 8 times 8 ways kind of situation. And if we have a span that leads us all the way to next year, it seems like we might have a better communication plan. So that's just an opinion.
Okay, well, the first thing that comes to mind is parking. The parking situation is much better using the Blue Ribbon building at the fairgrounds. As far as walkability, I'm not sure that there's much difference between people walking to the fairgrounds versus walking to the high school if they live in that area.
The fairgrounds are level ground. It's not an elevation, so they would not be walking uphill. They would not be walking uphill from the parking lot. So in accessibility, actually, it's probably a little bit better for someone who might be. And
It's hard to hear. Are you saying level ground?
Level ground, okay. The accessible parking can be literally next to the door, okay, versus having to go across that short stretch. We're talking maybe 10 feet to the door from where the parking space is. So I was concerned about possibly about the lighting in the evening, because we would be starting to set up at 6 in the morning and then possibly ending things at 10 in the evening. And I would say at this point in time, my confidence about having enough lighted parking and the lighted walkways is fine. So from that accessibility piece, the fairgrounds is air conditioned, whereas the high school is fans. For those of us who experienced fans before, this at least would be air conditioned. The room we were looking at has a carpet, so it would not be a big echo chamber unless we chose a slightly larger room, which might be might be suggested for November, especially if we're all showing up to vote, as opposed to having things mailed. So, any other questions, Kelly?
You mentioned air conditioning. What's the heat situation?
I would assume they have heat. They run things, they run conferences all year round.
Yeah. They have to.
So I would expect that it's, probably heated.
That we wouldn't
Thank
be
you.
competing with noise from the other side of the gym, the basketball. scene, and-
The lacrosse balls or the
Yeah.
volleyball. Yeah.
Carmen?
So I just have a comment. I think just for election days that don't close the school down, I think this works well as a safety precaution for the students, as there's not like a huge boundary from the entryway into the full building itself, and you have a lot of traffic coming in and out. So for me personally, I think that that's a big plus of moving the location.
And you can look at what happened today with the hoax calls about school shootings, and schools were in lockdown. I mean, if that happens during an election, that's hard. That could be really hard. I mean, it's unfortunate. We don't want it happening in the schools, but they seem to be a target at this point.
Can I ask just two questions, Susan? I'm intrigued by the proposal. It sounds like we know we would have parking, we have a suitable facility, so the accommodations are good for this purpose. We have agreement from the expo that they're willing to host. So those logistics have been worked out. Just so that we're aware, is there also a fallback position of using the high school just for our general awareness? Are they anticipating that we might be using it, or?
I haven't canceled anything with the high school yet.
Okay. And then the only other question I would have is, those of us who have worked the polls are aware that it's not uncommon for people to go to the incorrect polling place, given that there are several within our community and there's periodic changes due to redistricting. And when that happens, we have a process down where we notify folks who arrive, and then they're usually like, oh, shucks. And then they wander off to the next polling place. So how would we be notifying folks in advance of the election? And then how would we facilitate at the high school redirecting people and providing them with resources to get there?
Yeah, I would, I actually anticipate possibly sending postcards out to every voter as soon as possible to let them know that we've changed it. Also, if the council's making a decision about mailing ballots, we could put something on the outside of the envelope that goes to every single voter. They're still going to get people mixed up between where they live, and they're still going to show up. But we basically haven't changed polling places because of redistricting. People who live in the town of Essex, outside what used to be the village of Essex Junction, have always voted at middle school, and people who live in the city of Essex Junction, used to be village of Essex Junction, have always voted at the high school. We have not, in the last 6 years, we have not transitioned that. Before that, I know there was some strange transitioning going on, but I stopped that. And Raj has a comment over here.
Yeah, so we just approved the CVE schedule for next year, this year, I guess it is. Is really busy. So has there been a conversation about what you described as our next 4 or 5 election dates? Has that been compared to their pre-booked calendar that they gave us for permitting? And what is the conversation, or has there been a conversation about them then scheduling something big where it might become an issue, at least in terms of parking, crowd, whatnot, where there would be what I would consider confusion produced because they're having, all of a sudden they're going to book a big event, which is their prerogative, which would conflict with in and out navigation and parking logistics around an election on this.
I gave them our list of dates up through the end of 2024, and they said those all work for them. I can't speak to what might happen if they book some other kind of event, but I know they have signage, all kinds of signage, and direct people doing direction to get people in where they need to go. But I can't speak to that at this point.
I mean, the only conflict that might be possible would be the August primary, which would be the week before they shut down to set up for the fair. But we should not interfere, because we would literally be a week before they do that. So I can see that's the only time that there would be a real close call in major craziness, okay, over there. A lot of their events are weekends, and we're Tuesday. So it might actually be to their benefit to have us on Tuesday or setting up on Monday. That was one of my questions, was setting up on Mondays be okay the day before? And she said, no problem.
I guess the only other concern I had was like telling the speed, with which were the date being close. But it sounds like there's a good communication plan.
Yeah, it seems close, but it's 2 months, and I would start a communication blitz if we approve this tonight. Just because I just think it's a good idea, and the sooner we start, the better. But that's up to the board.
Or sorry, and what does that add to the budget?
What is that? What?
What does that add to the budget? Postcards that we would have to do as a separate mailing for this?
Yeah, probably, what are postcards now? 50 cents? Something for 7,000 voters?
3,500.
Yeah, probably about that.
And there's no, aside from it being difficult, there's nothing, like the high school's not trying to get us out.
I get the impression from them they would prefer that we weren't there. They've actually talked about possibly moving us out of the gym into the skating rink. I don't know how that works with parking and everything, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, it is a big change. I do know that other communities utilize buildings that are not necessarily school or public infrastructure. So there's certainly examples of this around the state. The expo is a large set of facilities with ample parking. It's on a bus route. So there are some boxes that this checks with regard to fundamentals. I do think that it would be very wise to have a flushed out communications plan for this. And I'm not sure who would be best to provide, input or oversight on that. But if it's an offline conversation and there's a subset of us that you would like to discuss that with, it would be good, because I think a combination, if we were to approve this, of signage on site at the high school, maybe by the entryway leading up to, and then the day of, directing folks to the fairgrounds, probably some sort of a press release to the public notifying them of this change, and any other steps through mail to let them know, front porch forum and other avenues would be the right way to approach it. So I think that's all possible, but I am interested, and I apologize I wasn't there in person tonight. I felt like I might be getting sick, so I didn't want to take anyone down with me, but it's hard to get a sense of the room as to people's level of comfort. And I do know that we have a limited amount of time tonight before the next meeting begins. So just want to see if anyone else has thoughts or comments.
I do, actually, if you don't mind. So I've heard these concerns before, and I'm glad that they've been addressed, and I'm glad that we're talking about the communication, because at the end of the day, I feel the same way. We have greater accessibility. I think the facilities is going to be easier to manage, as well as it's going to be easier for voters to utilize. But with the concern, I have a question, I guess, about our role in the fact that, yes, we can approve this polling place, but in order to do so, in order to address this concern, I think there's a portion of me that says I'm imposing an expenditure on the city. And I don't know if we have the authority to do that. While I don't believe that the city council would oppose an expenditure to put this communication out there, I think it's essential to make this successful. So I guess that's a question that I have, as to whether or not we, as in making this decision, can also say that we need that assurance in some way.
Yeah, this board doesn't really have a budget, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there, I mean, there's a couple ways to do it. There's Front Porch Forum, there's the website, there's public, public notices. And then maybe printing something on the envelopes that are gonna be mailed to every voter.
and I'm also
In my-
thinking of like signage at the high school,
Oh,
maybe that again.
There would
redirects
definitely would
people
be
as they
some,
approach the
something
school.
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
The fairgrounds had said that they would put the notification up on marquee. So anybody traveling Pearl Street, of course, would see that.
correct.
Oh, Dylan, well, I just want to make sure it's appropriate. I agree with this proposal, I think for many reasons. Number one, nowadays, right now, with mail-in balloting, I don't know what the exact percentage is of mail-ins, so realistically, it's not like pre-COVID when we had majority of people showing up to polling place. So we're getting a lot of mail-in. Number two, it's not like we live in New York City here, and you got to travel all the way, or even Burlington or South Burlington, you have to travel all the way to the other side of town. We're talking about the city of Essex Junction. So from the high school to the fairgrounds is a mile, if that maybe. So once they get there, there's plenty of time. You can almost walk it in 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Like you said, level ground. And that time of year, the weather should, other than maybe some rain, possibly a little snow in March, but who knows. But I think it's great all the way around. You got the access on 2A or Lincoln Street. You got access over on Pearl Street. There's plenty of space. It's not like you're competing, like we said, with the kids or potentially even the ambulance squad coming in and out of the ambulance bay over there. So there's many positives to this.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Oops.
You're very
You're
silent.
muted.
We can't hear you well. Your audio is weak.
Well, Dylan, I think you're,
Dylan, you're muted.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm intentionally muted. I was waiting to see if there were any other
Okay, your voice was very faint even when you were
Oh,
unmuted.
apologies. I'm here. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other comments. Appreciate the discussion here. I think given the proposal before us and the benefits of it, I am open to entertaining a motion to move in this direction, but I wasn't sure, Susan, the agenda wasn't clear. Oh, I'm sorry, I just misread it. It does look like we're looking for a motion to approve this plan. So if no one has any further comments, I would entertain a motion.
Some,
Can I ask a question? Okay.
we can discuss it after the moment.
Okay. Great.
Dylan, I don't want to take control of the meeting, but under Dylan's rules, we make a motion, right?
Great. Go for it. Good. Good. Thank you.
The motion, right?
Good. Thank you. Yep.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'll second Dan's motion.
Oh, and apologies. I did not hear your motion in the first place, Dan. So maybe that's on my end on the technology here. Okay, so we've now had a motion to approve this and a second. Kelly?
I'm just trying to understand if what we're voting on is to move the polling place and start in April, or are there two different things, which is moving the polling place and when does it start? Because I'm in favor of moving the polling place. I'm not in favor of moving it this April.
That's a great clarification. Susan?
Well, if I need to amend, I'll amend my motion. My motion, I would amend to say that we move it for this April election.
And I would accept that amendment.
Okay, so we now have a motion and a second to approve the new polling location at the Champlain Valley Fairgrounds, effective with the April local election for the city. Any further discussion? All right, giving it a second here. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by voting yes.
Aye.
All those voting no?
Nay?
All right, so in this case, since we have some online voting, we will need to conduct a roll call. Susan, I'm not in a position to see everyone. Can you call off the names and then we will record the vote?
yes, Kelly,
Nay?
Andrew,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, aye.
Sorry.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I cut your name off. Mark,
It's okay,
yes.
it's all good.
Raj?
Yes.
Yes. Who else is here? Diane?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Who did I check? Oh, Gib.
Yes.
Yes. Dennis?
Yes.
And Carmen?
Yes.
Okay. That's oh, wait, no, it's George
Aye.
and Dan
Aye.
and Amber.
Yes.
That's a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. So we had a successful vote there to approve the new polling location for the April election. And, I just want to acknowledge that given the vote outcome, I think it would be wise to have continued conversations as a board and with our local elections officials about how to approach this and any additional steps we need to take. So I'd welcome the conversation with the city council as that proceeds. And Susan, please keep us updated. We'll certainly make this a priority as we move toward that election. So that said, I'm going to suggest that we move to the next item on the agenda, which is to approve the slate of election officers. Susan?
Yes, so we're looking to add a few more names. Catherine Stebbins, Robin Moore, Scott Moore, and Catherine Shepard as election workers.
And Dan.
Oh, and Dan Karen.
Great. And Susan, for this proposal, I assume we need a motion in a second?
Yes, if we could just have a motion to accept or to appoint the people that I just named as election workers.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. I heard a motion and a second there. So let's conduct that vote then. All those in favor of approving these election workers, please vote aye.
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 All those no? I don't hear any. That was okay. Finally, there's just an item here for other business. Susan, is there any other business before the board tonight?
We kind of run out of time, but I just want to run over by state statute, the Board of Civil Authority is supposed to look at the checklist every other year to purge it. Traditionally, the boards have just left that to the clerk to look at things. If you want to see the checklist, I'd be happy to send it to you. If you want to try to identify people that need to be challenged, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue the way I've been with when we know that people have sold their homes, we send them challenge letters. When mail comes back, I send people challenge letters. So that's the way we've been doing it. And if you have any further questions about the purging and challenging process, I can fill you in if you just want to email me.
Great. Any comments on that? I don't hear any. I know we're running short on time. In addition to that, thank you for that offer, Susan. Just want to acknowledge that this is a board that meets periodically if there are needs such as abatement requests and ongoing questions about local elections where we meet to approve matters of this nature. So please keep an eye on your inbox. Your participation is key to this board's success, and we're looking forward to a successful term coming up and serving the community. So thank you all for your time tonight. And Susan, please keep us posted on your next steps to ensure that we move toward this April election and get the word out. So if there's no further comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, I saw a motion and a second. So all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
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 That was unanimous. All right, thank you.
Aye.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan. Thank
Thanks
you
all.
all for coming.
Thanks, Kelly.
So Robert's rules, not don't.
As we